In this part of the chapter, we will be learning the theorem of parallel and perpendicular axis, the concept of torque acting on a rotating body, and the concept behind the angular momentum and its conservation principle. Theorem of parallel axis. Theorem of parallel axis states that the moment of inertia of an object about any axis IO is equal to its sum of its moment of inertia IC about an axis parallel to given axis passing through its center of mass and the product of mass of the object and the square of the distance between the two axes. Mathematically, IO is equal to IC plus MH square. So the proof of parallel axis. Consider a body of any arbitrary shape revolving about an axis passing through its center of mass C. Let IC be the moment of inertia about this point. In order to find the moment of inertia about point O, we will divide the body into number of small mass elements, each of mass dm. Consider one such mass element at point D. Join OD and CD respectively. Draw perpendicular DN to OC produced. The distance between the two parallel axes is equal to h. By definition of moment of inertia, for a continuous mass distribution, R is equal to integral r square dm. Therefore, the moment of inertia about an axis passing through point O, IO is equal to integral OD square dm. Similarly, the moment of inertia about point C, IC is equal to integral CD square dm. Consider triangle ODN from the above figure. Using Pythagoras theorem, OD square is equal to dn square plus ON square. Therefore, we can write OD square is equal to dn square plus ON square can be written as OC plus CN bracket square. Therefore, expanding the term OC plus CN bracket square, we get OD square is equal to dn square plus OC square plus CN square plus 2OC times CN. Therefore, OD square is equal to OC square plus clubbing the terms dn square plus CN square in one bracket plus 2OC times CN. Now consider triangle CDN. dn square plus CN square is equal to CD square from triangle CDN. Replacing dn square plus CN square by CD square, we get OD square is equal to OC square plus CD square plus 2OC times CN. Multiply both sides by dm and integrate. Therefore, integration OD square dm is equal to integration OC square dm plus integration CD square dm plus 2 integral OC times CN dm. Now, by definition, IO is equal to integral OD square dm. IC is equal to integral CD square dm. So, I can write integration OD square dm is equal to IO. So, I am replacing integral OD square dm by IO is equal to. As the distance h is fixed between O and C, I can take OC square outside the integral and the integration will run on dm. And the integration of dm is capital M, that is the mass of the body. So the first term becomes mh square plus integral CD square dm, we know it is equal to IC. So I will write there as IC plus take 2 outside the integral sign, OC is equal to h times CN dm. Now observe the symmetry of the problem carefully. Cn is the distance from the center of mass. The mass distribution is symmetric about its center of mass. Therefore, by the definition of center of mass, we can write integral Cn dm is equal to 0. Substituting the value of integral Cn dm equal to 0 in the above equation, we get IO is equal to IC plus MH square. Now we will apply the theorem of parallel axis for a disk rotating about point O. In the figure shows the disk that is rotating about point O. Using the theorem of parallel axis, IO is equal to IC plus mh square. IC is the moment of inertia about an axis passing through its center of mass and perpendicular to its plane, whose value is mr square by 2. And the distance between the two axes is equal to the radius of the disk, that is r. Substituting IC is equal to mr square by 2 and h is equal to r in the above equation, we get IO is equal to 3 by 2 mr square. Now we will learn the theorem of perpendicular axis. The theorem of perpendicular axis states that the moment of inertia Iz of a plane laminar object about an axis perpendicular to its plane is the sum of its moment of inertia about two mutually perpendicular axes in its plane, all the three axes being concurrent. Mathematically, we have to prove that Iz is equal to Ix plus Iy, where Ix is the moment of inertia about x-axis, Iy is the moment of inertia about y-axis, and Iz is the moment of inertia about z-axis. To prove the theorem of perpendicular axis, we'll consider a plane lamina. We'll divide the plane lamina into number of small elements, each of mass dm, and we'll consider one such mass element at point P. The moment of inertia about x, y and z axis is Ix, Iy and Iz respectively. Join NP and MP respectively. The distance of point P from z axis is equal to OP. Now consider parallelogram ONPM. The distance NP is equal to x, which is same as distance OM, and the distance MP is equal to y, which is equal to distance ON, which is equal to y. Consider triangle ONP. OP square is equal to ON square plus NP square. Multiplying both sides by dm and integrate, integration OP square dm is equal to integration ON square dm plus integration NP square dm. Integration OP square dm is the moment of inertia of the body about z-axis. Similarly, integration ON square dm is the moment of inertia of the body about y-axis. As OMPN is a parallelogram, NP is equal to OM, that is the opposite sides of a parallelogram are always equal. Therefore, integration NP square dm is same as integration OM square dm, which is equal to the moment of inertia about x-axis. Therefore, we can write Iz is equal to Iy plus Ix. Rearranging the terms, we can write Iz is equal to Ix plus Iy. Now we will apply the theorem of perpendicular axis. Consider a figure. We can see here the body is now rotating about one of its diameter. So using the theorem of perpendicular axis, Iz is equal to Ix plus Iy, and we know that the moment of inertia about z-axis is equal to mr square by 2. That is, it is the moment of inertia about an axis passing through its center of mass and perpendicular to its plane. As the diameter about x and y axis are same, therefore the moment of inertia about Ix and Iy are equal. Therefore we can write Iz is equal to 2 times Ix, which is equal to 2 times Iy. Therefore the moment of inertia about x or y axis, that is about its diameter, is equal to mr square by 4. Now we will learn torque acting on the rotating body. Consider a body of any arbitrary shape rotating about an axis with constant angular acceleration alpha. Let us take into consideration the discrete mass distribution. Let m1, m2, m3 be the number of mass particles situated at the distances r1, r2, r3 up to rn. All these distances are perpendicular from the axis of rotation. As the external torque is acting on the body, each mass will be performing a non-uniform circular motion. Therefore, the force that will be experienced by each particle will act tangential to the circle, producing the linear tangential acceleration for each concentric circles. That means each mass will experience a tangential acceleration. Therefore, for mass m1, the tangential acceleration a1 is equal to r1 alpha. For mass m2, it is equal to r2 alpha, and so on. The torque experienced by the first particle will be equal to τ1, which is equal to F1 R1. According to Newton's second law of motion, F is equal to mass into acceleration. Therefore, we can write down F1 is equal to m1 R1 alpha. Therefore, τ1 will be equal to m1 R1 square alpha. Similarly, τ2 will be m2 R2 square alpha. τ3 will be m3 R3 square alpha, and so on. Therefore, the resultant torque that is acting on the body will be the sum of all the torques that is experienced by each mass. Therefore, τ will be equal to τ1 plus τ2 plus τ3 up to τn, which can be written as m1 r1 square plus m2 r2 square plus mn rn square times alpha. The bracketed quantity represents the moment of inertia, I. Therefore, τ is equal to I alpha. Now we will set up the relation between angular momentum and moment of inertia. Consider a body of any arbitrary shape rotating about an axis with constant angular velocity omega. Take into consideration the discrete mass distribution and divide the body into number of small mass particles m1, m2 up to mn situated at the radial distances r1, r2 up to rn from the axis of rotation. As the body is rotating with constant angular velocity, each mass that is stressing a circle will move with a constant speed. That means it will be performing uniform circular motion. Therefore, the tangential velocity that will be experienced by each mass will be given by V is equal to R omega. Therefore, for mass m1, V1 is equal to R1 omega. For mass m2, V2 is equal to R2 omega. For mass mn, Vn is equal to Rn omega. Therefore, the linear momentum experienced by each mass can be expressed as a product of mass and velocity. Therefore, the linear momentum experienced by mass m1 is given by P1, which is equal to m1 V1. Substituting the value of V1 from the above equation, we get P1, which is equal to m1 R1 omega. Angular momentum is equal to P1 R1. Therefore, L1 is equal to P1 R1, which is equal to m1 R1 square omega. Similarly, the angular momentum of a second particle will be P2 R2. Therefore, L2 is equal to m2 R2 square omega up to, for the nth particle, you can write Ln is equal to mn Rn square omega. Summing up the angular momentum experienced by each and every particle, L will be equal to m1 R1 square omega plus m2 R2 square omega up mn Rn square omega. Taking m1 R1 square, m2 R2 square up to plus mn Rn square in one bracket and multiplying with a constant factor omega. The bracketed quantity gives the moment of inertia of the body. Therefore, L is equal to I omega. We had learned the conservation of linear momentum, which states that if no external force acts on a colliding bodies, the linear momentum is always conserved. That is, the total momentum after collision is equal to the total momentum before collision. Similarly, we can set up the conservation of angular momentum. We know that angular momentum can be written as a vector product of r cross with p. So let us differentiate this equation with respect to time. So dl by dt is equal to d of dt of r cross with p. So using a chain rule, we can write dl by dt is equal to vector r cross with dp by dt plus dr by dt cross with vector p. Remember, all these are vector quantities. dr by dt is equal to vector v and dp by dt is equal to f by Newton's second law of motion. Therefore, we can write dl by dt is equal to r cross with f plus m in the bracket v cross with v, because dr by dt is v and p is equal to m times vector v. So m is taken common. The self cross product is always equal to 0. Therefore, dl by dt is equal to r cross with f. We know that r cross f is nothing but the torque acting. So the torque acting is equal to dl by dt. If no external torque acts on the body, tau is equal to 0. If tau is equal to 0, then dl by dt is equal to 0. If a derivative of any variable is 0, that variable is taken as a constant variable. Therefore, the angular momentum L is constant. Hence, angular momentum L is conserved in the absence of external unbalanced torque. This is the principle of conservation of angular momentum, which is very much analogous to the conservation of linear momentum. Now we will learn few applications of conservation of angular momentum. The first application is the Russian ballet dancer, which is spinning about her own axis. You can see her outstretched arms from the axis of rotation. Now in this case, the mass distribution has increased because she is revolving in a great circles now with her outstretched arms. So the mass distribution has spread, radius of gyration has increased, and so the moment of inertia, which is equal to mr square, has increased, which results in the decrease of angular velocity. Similarly, when she takes her arms very close to her body, or her hands are taken very close to her body, the distribution of mass about the axis of rotation has reduced, which results in the reduction of moment of inertia. The magnitude of moment of inertia has dropped, whereas the angular velocity has increased. Now, as no external torque is acting on her body, and in the first case, if we say the moment of inertia is I1 and the angular velocity is omega 1, and in the second case, the moment of inertia is I2 and the angular velocity is omega 2, as no external torque is acting on her body, we can write I1 omega 1 is equal to I2 omega 2. In the similar manner, you can take a second example of somersault, in which an athlete is performing a somersault. As no external torque is acting on his or her body, we can write I1 omega 1 is equal to I2 omega 2.